Happy Friday after Thanksgiving, November 29th, 2019. It's the holiday weekend and it's Metro Detroit, so of course today's Daily Detroit is all about sports. I'm Jer Stays. I'm coming to you from the road, so I apologize for the slightly different sounding audio. Up first, I talk a bit about the Lions' loss, then Sven, Gustafson, and Fletcher Sharpe cover the Pistons. And of course, just so you know, we will be back to stories around town and more on Monday morning. But for now, let's just get to it. Let's set the table by saying I'm a homer and I am a Lions fan, but Thursday's 24-20 loss against the Bears was another example that this whole Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn era is seeming to be a coaching and general managing mistake, in my opinion. I sat there as we lost yet another lead and thought we got rid of Bob Caldwell, who didn't win enough with 2 playoff appearances for this? Now, I'm not saying Caldwell was any sort of messiah, but hindsight is 2020, and he seems to have been a much better coach than people gave him credit for. A big bright spot was third-string undrafted quarterback David Bluff, whose Wikipedia page, after throwing a 75-yard touchdown as his first career completion, was temporarily changed to, quote, owner of the Chicago Bears, unquote, and a photo of a goat was added. I'm all for that. Elias Sports says that this is the second longest touchdown by a quarterback on his first career completion since that big NFL merger back in 1970. So I say this next thing just because I'm just not into paranormal stuff, but I wonder if the curse of Bobby Lane was supposed to go years ago. It was a 50-year curse after all, but on that final year we went 0-16. I just can't help but wonder if somehow it has kept going. It was an expectedly painful loss. It drops the Lions to 3-8-1, good for bottom of the basement of both the NFC North and the firm knowledge that we will not be in the playoffs this year, as we are the first NFC team to be officially eliminated. Which gets me to the larger point. Between the Tigers, the Lions, the Red Wings, and the Pistons, look, our sports in town stink right now. This is a city with few things that hold us together across our boundaries, and we also have some of the greatest sports fans in the country. And we really deserve and we need better. But I'll be honest, I am at a total loss of how to get there. Over to Fletch and Sven.
Despite coming off 2 lopsided victories in a row, the Detroit Pistons are now 6-11, including a woeful 1-8 on the road. There's now concern among the fans that their playoff hopes are already in jeopardy unless they make some moves. And we're talking specifically a trade. We'll talk all about that with our NBA correspondent, Fletcher Sharpe. And I should also note before we get into this that we recorded this segment on Wednesday. That was before the Pistons traveling to Charlotte. They also host the Hornets on Friday night. With all that said, Fletcher, how you doing, man?
I'm all right.
All right. So as I mentioned, the Pistons are kind of surprising a lot of people in the basketball world who expected them maybe to be a little more competitive early on. What's wrong with the team so far here early in the season? Where do they need help?
Well, to start, they were missing Blake Griffin, which most of their offense is kind of freeform, but still centered around getting the ball to Blake Griffin, letting him create. So when your main guy who's supposed to be there to create for you is not there, you're going to have some issues. Also, Derrick Rose is trying to find himself coming off of an injury. He was on minute rotation reduction. Same was Blake when Blake finally came back. So it's kind of, difficult to gauge exactly how they were going to do without them. As of late, their main issue has really been that they don't have the defense to defend properly against other teams' attacks. They can score with a lot of teams, but the problem comes when they're missing shots, they're getting beat in the fast break. However, as mentioned before, one of the bright spots is Andre Drummond. While people want to get rid of him, he has been steadily putting up in his historic year.
So meanwhile, as you mentioned, Blake Griffin's now back in action and everything, but more recently they've lost Reggie Jackson to a back injury. How much does that hurt?
It depends who you ask. Some people would say that it matters. Some people would say it doesn't. I tend to go along the lines of those that it doesn't matter so much because I don't really think he's much of a plus.
Mm-hmm.
He tends to hog the ball whenever he's having a good shooting night, and he also tends to hog the ball when he's not. I think the Pistons work best when they let Blake Griffin create. Reggie Jackson kind of doesn't really allow that because he wants to keep the ball. I will say whoever they've been replacing him with, though, never really seems to work The only plus side is Bruce Brown, who they drafted as a shooting guard out of Miami last year, is getting some rotation as a larger point guard, which is helpful because it's helpful to have people who can handle the ball. So that's the one plus. Otherwise, people don't want to trade Reggie Jackson, and I guess he can't really be traded if he's hurt, so no one can see him play. So I think it hurts there, but otherwise, I don't really think Reggie Jackson's much of an asset for this team.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on then to the speculation that the Pistons may need to make some trades. What has Dwayne Casey, the head coach, said about that, and who might they be looking to use as bait?
I have not asked Dwayne Casey this question because I am afraid to ask Dwayne Casey this question because it seems a little early, personally, to be asking about trades. I know the season is maybe like about 15 games in, but I think there's still some time to recover. Blake Griffin's back, still a minute restriction, but he's back to being able to be competent. So that's going to help your offense some. I think they're really the main issue they're having right now, though, if we're trying to look for things to replace, is a backup center, backup big man. So if Blake gets in foul trouble or Andre gets in foul trouble, if you're going to start Markieff Morris, then that kind of creates a hole there. And right now, as I've said before, Thonmaker's not getting it done. And while I think Christian Wood is a better option, Christian Wood is still learning the Pistons scheme. So all the points that he's scoring are coming really off of catching and shoot from three or getting rebounds and putting it back up. But when it comes time to run a play with him, he does not know what he's doing. He's just going where people are telling him to go and not really knowing what to do, which is amazing that whenever he's in there for short amounts of time, he's still putting up points. Like the last game I went to this Friday, Christian Wood really only played the fourth quarter, but he came in the fourth quarter and scored 9 points, had like 5 rebounds and 2 blocks in just like 1 quarter of time. So like when he knows what he's doing, he's producing. The problem is like you don't really want to put someone in that doesn't know what they're doing early on in the game because that could really cost you. But when the game's kind of being blown out or something, whether you're winning or losing, you can afford that. I think if they're going to look to trade for someone, they're going to try to look for a big man who can help there, or maybe look for a wing defender who can score but also play some defense. Because as someone pointed out on Twitter, Last Chance, Lazarus Jackson, Pistons reporter, Blake Griffin, during his time in Detroit, has never really had a wing who can attack and play defense. The best thing he's had was the other Morris brother we had, Marcus Morris. And I don't really think Marcus was more of a wing. I don't really think he would fit that mold too much. So if they could get someone who kind of like Tobias Harris in the past, except Tobias Harris who actually wanted to have the ball versus Tobias Harris who just happened to have the ball because he was the most talented, that would really help the team a lot. You give some wing scoring next to Blake. You give someone who can give the ball to Andre so he can give it back to him, someone who can attack off the dribble. Luke Kennard's coming into his own, which is great, but you still really don't want him trying to beat you to the rim. You want him kind of still shooting. So someone who could kind of, I don't want to say someone like Carmelo Anthony, but not Carmelo Anthony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like someone who could take the ball, score themselves. When a game gets late, take over the game sort of, but like not still play within the system. But that's going to be a lot to ask. A lot of people are thinking they should try to trade Andre Drummond for that, which I think would be a big mistake because he's doing a lot for the team.
A lot of people say Blake Griffin should be traded. What do you think of that?
I don't know what you do with this team then if you trade him. I don't know where the scoring is going to come from because a lot of people's numbers go up when Blake's on the court. I know some people's numbers go down. Like I know Luke's numbers this season have been a bit down when Blake's been on the court. But I feel like if you get rid of him, then what was really the point of trying to get him? I feel like that's kind of a waste of money and time.
Yeah.
But no, I mean back to Drummond. A lot of people are saying they want to get rid of him because they don't like his effort, anything of the sort. If you get rid of him, I don't know where the rebounds are going to come from because no one else rebounds on this team, which is why Drummond can average like 17, 18 rebounds a game. It's because other team, it's kind of like when Ben Wallace played for the 03-04 Pistons from that area.
Yep.
Save for Rashid, no one else really rebounded. And that was okay because Ben would grab you 15 rebounds. But if you get the first year without Ben Wallace, the Pistons had a hard time rebounding because they're like, oh, we can't run in transition because there's no one here to grab the rebound. So I really feel like they should get someone established, make sure they have someone they really want before they do that. And there's no one in the market that's going to fetch that's going to be able to give what they want for Andre Drummond right now, at least.
Right. So speaking of Ben Wallace and, the Pistons of yesteryear, we just passed the 15-year anniversary of the infamous Malice at the Palace. And I understand you were actually at that game, Fletcher.
Yeah, it was my first ever Pistons game with my father.
Oh, wow.
We normally went to Lions. Yeah, we normally went to Lions games. I went to one Pistons game with my stepfather's fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. And this one actually also featured a player going into the stands momentarily. Back when Bison Dele played, I remember
wow.
I remember he made a block and threw the ball up the court just to run up the clock, and he walked towards the edge of the court, started high fiving fans, he just didn't care. And there was at least 5 seconds left on the clock, and I was like, "What's happening? What's going on? Is this normal?"
What do you remember from the Malice at the Palace night, though?
I tell people this and they don't believe me, and I always have to bring up one of my friends who was also there. I actually was in the lower bowl, about 30 rows, 25, 30 rows from the scores table. So when Ron Artest leapt over the scores table, he was running in our direction.
Mm-hmm.
What I remember most about it was everything seeming surreal. And this, everyone remembers the hard foul he put on Ben. Ben pushed him and all that happened. And just watching it, you're kind of all right, well, this looks almost like a play. This can't be actually real.
Right.
And I remember looking up and seeing the beer cup get before it hit Ron Artest. And in my head, we were all oh my God, that actually happened. And my most bright memory was NBA dunk champion, 2004 NBA dunk champion, Fred Jones, played for the Indiana Pacers. I remember him hopping in the stands, trying to fight someone after watching Steven Jackson throw some haymakers. I remember Ben Wallace's brother, just completely picking him up and throwing him down. And Fred Jones disappeared. He disappeared for a good 3 minutes because fans were just beating him up. And just it stunned me. And I remember Ron Artest when he left, when he went to his to the locker room. Remember Steven Jackson said that Ron Artest was, "Are we going to get in trouble?" I remember leaving the Palace with my father. Will this even be on TV? This seems like it's going to be forgotten about. And I got home. And literally every channel, ESPN, Fox Sports, CNN, MS, all of them were this happened in Auburn Hill. And it was just crazy to see, I was there. I literally saw all this with my own eyes, but almost there.
Yeah.
Heck, as a kid, I almost threw a cup. My father grabbed me and he was like, we don't do that.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was it.
Young Fletcher learns about the virality of the modern, news media and the internet.
I really wish I hadn't done it because I would have gotten a nice collectible cup out of it. But since I had to drop the cup entirely, I lost out on a nice little memory from that night.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's shift gears really quick. A little bit of soccer news involving a local club, Livonia City. Fletcher, what happened there? They participated in the U.S. Open Cup?
Yeah, so the U.S. Open Cup, for those who don't know, is probably one of the best sports tournaments in the U.S. It's one of the few chances, since there's no promotion and relegation, that allows amateur teams to play against professional teams. But before they have the U.S. Open Cup proper, which is the actual tournament, they have the qualification rounds where local leagues, teams from other national leagues who didn't qualify through the league, they get a chance to play through play-in games to kind of play against each other to see who qualifies. So this year they cut the qualification round short at the third round. So whoever won their third round games were to be qualified for the actual tournament. Michigan has had a few qualifiers over the years. They've had Detroit City FC, AFC Ann Arbor, Lansing United back when they were a thing, Lansing Ignite for the 1 year that they were around, etc. But they haven't had a U.S. Open Cup qualifier from the qualification round in a very, very long time. I think the early 80s, late 70s.
Wow.
So, yeah, Livonia City FC went to Louisiana to play against the Louisiana Crew, who are I forgot which league they're a part of, but I do know that they have major league backing. So they're like a feeder group to a major league team. I forgot which one too. But Livonia City lost in a heartbreaking 1-0 in a late PK. I don't know too much about Livonia City. I do know that they are very active on Twitter. They very much want you to tweet, retweet, and share everything that they post. They're so far well respected within their community. A lot of people seem to be let down that they lost.
Livonia is a big soccer community. I know this from back when I was, coming up playing travel soccer. A lot of the and high school soccer as well. A lot of the clubs in Livonia were very good.
I know that they are going to continue on with the MPSL season. They might potentially be switching to a bigger league. We don't know. When I know, I'll be sure to let everyone else know.
Yep.
But yeah, unfortunate for them to lose. So in the U.S. Open Cup next round, there'll only be one Michigan team to represent the state, and that'll be Detroit City FC. As AFC and Arbor would have qualified, but because they switched leagues, there's a rule in the U.S. Open Cup. If you switch from one league to another, no matter how well you did, you're not eligible for the Cup. So AFC and Arbor switched from the NPSL to the USL League 2. They're now ineligible to play. Sad. So everyone can root for Detroit City to represent the state super well.
All right, finally, Fletcher, before we let you go, what's this about, like some kind of 6 degrees of separation from People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive?
Well, I was at the Pistons game Friday against Atlanta Hawks. I got to meet one of my journalism idols, Andre Aldridge, who worked for NBA TV, currently does some play-by-play for the Hawks. The following night, Andre Aldridge went back to Atlanta to cover a Hawks game where he met Idris Elba. And they did a little 10-minute interview, talked about a bunch of stuff, asked him about some soccer questions. So I was like, wow, I got to meet someone who knows my name. I got to chat with him for a little bit. And then he promptly went and met this guy. And right after I said that, my girlfriend was like, he's in your 6 degrees of separation. You have 1 degree separation of him, of Idris Elba. And I was like, wow, that made my day. That boom. So
that's pretty cool. Did you get to meet Idris Elba or no?
No, I got to meet Dominique Wilkins though.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he got to learn my name and then promptly forgot it. Then my editor introduced him to me, and then he didn't remember that he met me 10 minutes ago. So I'm coming up in the world.
Yeah, good deal. All right, Fletcher. Well, thanks so much for catching us up on all this, important sports information and more trivial brushes with fame. We appreciate it and enjoy your Thanksgiving break.
Thanks for having me. You guys as well.
And we're done for today. I hope you enjoyed your turkey or tofurkey or whatever you had, and that you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Small Business Saturday is, tomorrow, so go shop local. I'm Jer Stays. We're back at it on Monday morning. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care of each other. We'll see you around Detroit.